afternoon, everyone, and happy Saturday. You're here with Lady Pauline on Our World, Our Power Show, and my co host, Mr. Glenn Greenwich, the Honorable Mayor of Sutton Boulevard, and my guest co host, Mr. Wayne Gilman. How are you, Wayne?
Just fine in
I'm
yourselves.
great.
Thank you for having me again.
Of course,
All right.
anytime.
Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Always.
Wayne, you have a friend that's on today. Would you do the honors and introduce him to our world?
All right. I have so many friends, but I have to say, this is one of my oldest friends, and I hate to put age to it, but the legendary G. Keith Alexander of radio stage TV fame and the discos from back in the day. And there's other things that I could attach to his his extensive resume in terms of social activities, but we'll leave it at that right now as we get into the program. Keith, welcome.
Welcome,
It is
Keith.
good to see you.
Welcome.
You don't look a over 21, man.
Well, thank you so very much. It's so nice to hear your voice, Wayne.
Hey, well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a New York radio legend too.
I try to keep it quiet because my tenants are always up. Well, that's a whole nother story. We forget about what I'm doing on the outside that way. It's another story. But yeah,
G.
thank
Keith.
you.
Hello, Pauline. Hello,
Hi.
Glenn. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
great. I'm honored to have you on our show today. And, I've seen you for so many years. I know you don't know me personally, but I feel like I really know you because I've seen your picture like 45 years ago. I was at
45?
yeah, it is 45 because my son is 42. So it was before I even had children. So I was at this place called NBS Radio in Manhattan, and I was studying this whole business. And your picture used to hang on the wall, yours and Johnny Allen. And they said, well, if you want to be good, you got to be like these guys. So my first question to you is, how long have you been in radio and broadcasting?
Well, pardon me, I got a little frog in my throat. Ribbit. I started in 1971 as an entrepreneur in radio because I too was at NBS, but that was before they moved it to New York. I used to have to go to Jersey to his office in Jersey, and so that was 71, and then I got in about 72. And if I may elaborate a little bit, when I was at NBS, I used to pay the guy $20 every Tuesday so I could be on the air from 5:15 a.m. to 5:30 a.m., long enough to say hello, goodbye, and play 3 records. And so I would take that tape. I don't know if I should tell the whole story. But
Yeah, go ahead. We got time.
Okay. All right. So if I was a student at Fordham University at the time, and if I happened to be lucky that evening, and one of my female students wanted to come over for some extracurricular work,
So that's where it started.
right?
All right.
I would wake her up at 5:15 in the morning so she could hear me on the radio, and we'd go back to sleep at 5:30. I would take that cassette to school that day, and I'd play it for the rest of my friends in the cafeteria, and they would laugh at me, and they say, "Oh, G. Keith, you'll never be a DJ. You'll never be." So anyway, I ended up taking that cassette to WLIB. It was WLIB FM at the
FM.
time. Yeah, Frankie, I'd gotten wind that Frankie was getting ready to start a radio station, new format, from a guy named Rocky G, who had been on WWRL. So anyway, this guy told me about it. So I took the tape to Frankie, and Frankie listened to the tape for about 2 minutes, and he laughed, and he said, "You know what?" He said, "Tell you what, you can be my librarian, and you take care of all the records for me, and you can sit in for me on the weekends when I take off.
Okay.
And that's how I got started in radio, and that was like 1972.
Well,
Oh,
well,
okay.
well, I'm gonna ask a question. What actually got you interested in even being on the air? What was your inspiration?
Well, when I grew up in Chicago, my mother used to buy World Book encyclopedias every other year. So I'd
Okay.
sit on the floor in front of the television and I would thumb through the encyclopedias and I'd listen to the guy on television who was the
Mm-hmm.
announcer. Now, I didn't know that that was a job. I'm like maybe 8, 9 years old, something like that. But I'd hear him say, WLS Chicago. And
Mm-hmm.
then I would fall asleep at night listening to two of my favorite DJs. One was a guy named Herb Kent, the Cool Gent, and another guy was
Mm.
Dick Bionde, the Wild Out Trian. So I kind of thought that these guys were sitting in a dark room on a stool with a spotlight on them, and they were talking directly to me. So this is something that I kind of wanted to do, because of this. So then I get into fifth grade, and the nun lined everybody up against the wall and asked every one of us what did we want to become when we grew up. And I said, well, I want to be a radio announcer. And so, lo and behold, as God would have it, I am what I said I wanted to be. And
Yes.
that's how it began.
That's awesome. Now, what was your first job at? What station was it at? Was it
Well,
BLIB or was that the first one that you
my
really
first
actually?
my first professional job was at WLIB FM when Frankie had just taken over the jazz format, and he was switching the jazz format to R&B. And I remember being down. I remember riding down with him to a studio downtown where I had never heard anything like this before, never seen anything before. We walk into the recording studio, and there were two speakers on stands in the middle of the floor. And the engineer says, listen to this. And the guy he hit the button, and it said WBLS. And that was the beginning of my professional career in radio.
And I don't mean to throw you off, Keith. As I'm recalling all this, for some reason, I vaguely remember seeing you at 310 Lenox Avenue. Didn't you work a little bit uptown too before going down to Second? I mean, what you're talking about is what became WBLS, right?
Well, WLIB FM, of course, started at 310 Lenox Avenue, and then the format changed, and the call letters, we started at
But
310 Lenox Avenue
hmm hmm
before moving down to Second Avenue.
right. Because I worked briefly there, well, longer than you had at that point. But for some reason, I thought you were also part of the team at 310. You know, because
Yeah, I was the first one that he hired at 310.
right.
Yeah,
And then Vi, because I remember seeing Vi all the time,
right.
and Eddie OJ and the others.
Right. He hired me first. Then he hired Vi. He asked me if we were at Club La Martinique, and Johnny Allen was a DJ at Club La Martinique. He asked me. He says, "Do you think we ought to hire him?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So he hired Johnny, and I think those were the ones that were hired. I don't remember if Ken was hired at 310 or Lamar, but I do remember when we moved downtown, Ken and Lamar came along.
Yeah, because there was a simulcast with Eddie OJ in the morning. He did AM and FM
For a
before,
little while, yeah.
right, for a little while. And then Ken Webb came in because I guess BLS wanted its own identity. And I started my first show with on air, that is, working with Eddie OJ. You know,
So
so
you were at WWRL with Uncle
no, I
Funky.
was at WLIB. I had not.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
WLIB with
AM.
Uncle Funky.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I used to call him Uncle Funky or either
He
Motor Mouth.
was. I did Christmas Day 1972, and he told me to pack my bags and go home. I was so embarrassed.
Really?
Yeah, back then, we had 6 states listening, and but I mean, not to take away. I mean, you guys were like really next to the RL jocks, were the gold standard for black broadcasting in the business.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, after a while, I always say that, and I've heard it said that the jocks at WWRL, they were like the Temptations of radio. And then when Frankie came over to WLIB FM and wanted to do something different, he wanted it to be smooth and cool and didn't want us to
Yeah.
talk fast. And so he moved away from that, from what he had done at WWRL.
Yeah, because at that time, Hank Span is the one that trained me. He took me under his wing, and I became his person to do everything. So that's how I really learned the business. And sometimes Bobby J would come in because Bobby J relieved Hank Span. So I got to work with him a little bit, but you guys I idolized. I always wanted to be like you all, and what happened to me is the fact that I became a mother, and so I had to give up the business. It was too erratic for me, moving from place to place to place to place. But please tell me, what do you see different today as opposed to when you first started with broadcast, with radio? Because I know it's a lot different.
Well, first of all, I would say that there are no boundaries really right now in radio. People can talk about anything and everything, and music has certainly changed. Where it used to be uh, clean music, if I can use that term, and you talk about loving women and wanting to spend the rest of your life with them, and if I could only have you now. Whereas it's gone to now where I'm gonna do you and spank that and
Back it
things,
up.
yeah, all that stuff.
Oh, so they elevated the conversation. All right. I understand it now.
Yeah, and then it's gotten to the point where there used to be appointment radio. Like when we were back in the day, you couldn't wait to get home from school to listen to Frankie Crocker on the air.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you worked a night shift somewhere, you couldn't wait to the overnight guy or woman came on so that you could listen. Now it's like you got so many different avenues to be able to listen to, if it's music or talk or whatever it is, and you don't have that same loyalty anymore when it comes to broadcasting.
That's true.
That's interesting that you say that because I first heard Frankie Crocker when he was on the AM and it wasn't. I don't think it was a RL. I think it was a white station, and
MCA.
WMCA.
and I'm turning the dial, and I was like, and I heard this distinctive black voice and the music he was playing, and I was like, wow. And this, again, as you said, this was after school, so this was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon after I'd come home, and every day I would turn to listen to hear him, hear the music, and just there was something about the rhythm, the vibe that he provided, and of course when he opened up WBLS. I'm in high school those days and loving it. I mean, just grooving on it and having a good time. And it really was uplifting. I can say that to have that music and for my parents to allow me to listen to it, it wasn't any kind of conflict like that, but it was something that was really nurtured my spirit as a young person at that time. So I've listened to you all from afar, but with much, much admiration because it really opened me up to music, to R&B, and some of the artists that, of course, weren't being played on some of the other radio stations. So it really was an opportunity for me to get my sense of musical background and history to be part of who I developed myself to be inside of that. So I
Well,
really want to thank you for that.
Yes.
well, you're
Very much
quite
so.
welcome, Glenn. If I may say this, WBLS was came along during a period of time when we all wanted to be upwardly mobile. We all
Yes.
wanted to we all wanted to have a better life than our parents had. The men, when we brought uh, dance parties downtown, the men, the guys wore suits and ties, and the women wore nice dresses and suits, and it was a time when we were aspiring to be other things, and so it was a great time. But I got to tell you this: the first day I came to New York, I got picked up at the airport by two friends of mine. One was a guy I had been in school with in Chicago, and the other was the assistant dean of Fordham University at the time, who had gotten me the scholarship. We knew him from Chicago because he used to be the assistant pastor at the school I went to in Chicago. So we're in the car coming from the airport, and they turn on WMCA radio, and I hear this guy saying he had, on his show was um, uh, just slightly ahead of his time. Frankie, do it to it, and
Yes.
Right.
and and
Yes.
and, I heard all that on the radio. Now I had never heard that type of radio before because in Chicago, jocks weren't so egotistical, so to speak,
Right.
if I may say that. So
Really?
I'm listening to this guy as we're driving into New York, and I remember saying to the driver, "Who the heck does this guy think he is?" And never did I ever dream that I would be working with this guy and he would become my mentor and my friend.
Yeah.
I had never had the any idea that that would be the case.
Okay.
Well, if I could just add to that, I recall very well, when Frankie was at MCA, and I also remember when he segued from RL going to WMCA. That was a significant milestone back in the day where you had someone of our color being
Right.
represented. I think it was only Chuck Leonard who had the honor of working at WABC. And I
Exactly.
say honor, but actually that's not really the word to use. It was an opportunity that was given that only but a handful of us had. Basically, when you worked in that kind of environment, it was like Noah's Ark. If two were hired and two died, then the next two would come in.
Right,
I
right, right.
and it's just phenomenal how the whole industry has changed. And just to piggyback on what both Pauline and Glenn were asking, I see it so radically different now. It seems like we had much more fun back then, particularly the interaction that you and I and the other jocks that I worked with. When and I've been granted in my old age an opportunity to do fill-in work for Ann Tripp at
Hmm.
WBLS,
Oh,
and
oh,
the
really?
station is,
Oh,
yeah. I've
that's
been doing
great.
it. Yeah, thank you. I've been doing it the last 6 months,
Hmm.
and I had been away from it for a good 15 years, and going back the first day, I was feeling the jitters I had back in '72. But it's like riding a bike. But I just, what I find so distinctly different is that even though there have been greater opportunities, one of the reasons why I dropped out is because I didn't like where social media was going, from a
Really?
news perspective,
Hmm. Hmm.
and when I juxtapose what I'm doing now and having worked with you, and I know you've worked in some other operations like KTU, and I think you were KISS, weren't you?
Kiss.
Or
Yeah, I was at
yeah.
Kiss, Jammin' 105.1, WRVR. Uh,
So you went
I,
around,
yeah,
but
yeah,
you're
yeah.
most noted for your time at BLS. I would
No,
say, right?
Kiss.
Well,
What?
no, most people associate me with WBLS more than any other radio station.
That's what I.
Oh, right.
Although I was Keith on Kiss for a while, and
Mhm.
but no one ever really associates me with that.
Oh, okay.
Right,
Right.
right, and that's to tell you the gravity, the power BLS had back then.
Right,
Pre KTU Kiss and all the others that came along after.
Do it
right.
now.
Well,
Yeah.
Right.
plus I've worked at BLS three times already. I
Oh,
was there for three. Yeah, I've been there three
yeah.
times. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's interesting. So you was there, then you left, and you went back, and you went back. That's good.
Well, yeah, yeah. I left the first time because Frankie got a contract with the people in Chicago to start WGCI Radio in Chicago, which is a big radio station in Chicago. But Frankie couldn't go, so Frankie sent me to be the music director and to help guide them in the programming. And I had a midday slot from 12 to 4 on WGCI Radio. So that's when I first left. And then Frankie had always said, "Well, if they ever fire you, you can come back to work here." So when I got fired there because they wanted to take more control of the radio station, this guy from Phoenix or something, I got fired. Came back to New York, and Frankie said that Dorothy Brunson didn't want to hire me. So when Dorothy, so when Dorothy Brunson, excuse me, didn't want to hire me, then Van Jay hired me over WRVR. And so I worked with Van Jay over at WRVR, and then he left, and then a guy named Waters came in, and I don't know if you guys know who Bat Johnson is, but
Yeah.
okay, well, Bat Johnson had just gotten fired up in Boston. And so Waters brings Bat Johnson into my studio and says, "Hey, I want you to meet Bat Johnson. This is G. Keith Alexander." He says, "Bat just got fired up in Boston." I said, "Oh, hey, Bat, look, don't worry. I'm sure you'll get a job with no problem real soon." Little did I know they were setting me up so that I would get fired at WRVR so that Bat would take my job. But it was
Oh my
great,
goodness.
but it was the best thing that happened to me because a week later I was hired at WKTU
Yeah,
Disco 92, and
Wow.
we turned that into Disco 92, and I stayed there for 6 years.
yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
I
Wow.
know.
Did you see that coming, or just was totally unexpected?
It was totally unexpected. I'm getting ready to drive in to the parking lot. They didn't like the fact that as Pauline knows, most of the jocks over at WWRL had Cadillacs, and
Yes, they
and and
did.
and they didn't want them to park in the parking lot.
Mm-mm.
They'd have to find a place outside. So
Mm.
when I drove from Jersey, I had about 5 minutes usually before I had to be on the air. So I'd pull my Mercedes into the parking lot and I'd park in the parking lot. Well, the general manager, I forget his name, Markles or somebody, didn't like the fact that I parked in the parking lot. So, so when I was coming to park that day, Bobby J caught me outside. He says, "Gee, Keith, I got to tell you something." I said, "What?" He says, I can't let you go in there without knowing they're getting ready to fire you." I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, they get ready to fire you." I said, "Oh, okay." So I go in, and the program director says, "Well, G. Keith, it's just not working out." And I said, "What do you mean not working out? My numbers are high. I'm doing a great job, having fun." But see, he wanted to bring his buddy Bat Johnson in, so they fired me to bring Bat Johnson in.
Mm. Mm.
Mm-mm-mm. This is a cruel world, Kiki.
Yeah, yeah.
Something I want to ask you, and it's current. Tell us a little bit about your network and what you're doing, because I've been, watching you for quite a while again with your network, with your Harlem America,
Right, Harlem America
Mc-
Digital Network.
the digital network.
Excuse me.
When
Well,
did
thank you
that
for.
begin? When did that begin?
I started, I've always wanted to have my own radio TV network. And so around 2015, I started trying to figure out how I was going to do it, how I was going to monetize it. And then it wasn't until 2017, I put all the pieces together and the name and everything. And I realized that I wanted to have a network, Harlem America Digital Network. It's the total Black experience in entertainment, empowerment, health, and wellness. And we connect Harlem with the Harlems of the world. And what we do, the main function of it is to help entrepreneurs, executives, and business owners build fame, fortune, and followers around their brand. So we sell radio packages, radio TV packages to entrepreneurs so that they can have fame, fortune, and followers. So we have a radio network, and our broadcasts go across Harlem America as well as Voice America, and Voice America is my partner, uh, and then we have a television network where I've got 11 TV channels, which I'm in the process of populating all those. So when I do a show every Friday, the that airs live, goes across the two radio networks, and then we take the video and that goes into post, and we do editing and everything, and then that goes on the TV channel, one of the TV channels. We haven't populated the other channels yet.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean,
Oh, oh, oh!
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say that we're on Roku TV, Amazon TV, Apple TV, Android TV, and we just got another channel. We just got Comcast Xfinity. So that's the distribution platforms that we have, as well as
Whoa.
being in all the audio podcast platforms.
Well, G Keith, you're in Harlem and we're here in Queens, and we do something very similar. We're on Roku and Apple TV and all the
Spotify.
Spotify and iHeartRadio and all that good stuff. So I know
Great, great.
exactly what you do. I love what you do. I still want to be like you, G Keith, because you have
Sex change in the future? Just curious, that's
no,
all.
no, no. I love being a lady. That's why I
I
call
hope
myself
so.
Lady Pauline.
Yeah.
No, no sex change. That wouldn't fit my program at all. But G. Keith, what I was about to say was the fact that today it's about podcasts, and we're training young people to be interviewers, learn the equipment and everything, but be professional.
That's
I
great.
never forget the long time ago how we were, and even though we cracked jokes and it was still on a professional basis. A lot of the podcasts today, not knocking anything, some of them leave a bad taste in my mouth. Let's put it like that. But when I listen to you and a few other people, I mean, it's just awesome. I love
Thank
listening
you.
to you every week and all the different guests that come on your show. It's
Thank you.
very inspirational.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I had a question for you in terms
Mhm.
of now. Now, sounds like you're now more in the business of supporting businesses,
Right.
marketing and advertising. As a radio jock, what was I guess what I'm asking is, did you see where the influence of music was going? Um, you know, I relate to you and your genre as R&B, the ballads, and so on and so forth. But for example, did anybody foresee that rap would last as long as it did, or some of the other genres that are not necessarily as popular but are still being impactful to listening audiences?
Well,
What's your take on that?
well, Glenn, that's a very good question. In 1978, I was at Disco 92 WKTU playing disco music, but rap was kind of coming in. We had been playing Sugar Hill Gang and
Oh, right,
Grandmaster
yeah,
Flash.
sure.
Uh, but one of the reporters from Channel 5, Chuck Curry, came to interview me. And he said, G. Keith, what do you think about this rap? Now, I had come from jazz, R&B, and now I was in disco. And I said, this stuff is it's a fad. It's not going to be around long. So little did I know, okay, that R&B, that hip hop, that rap was going to become mainstream. Now
Hmm.
they just had me on Good Day New York 2 weeks ago. I was on Good Day New York because they wanted to do a tribute to the 50th anniversary of hip hop,
Hip hop,
and
right? Yeah.
and while I was when I used to work at Fox, I was entertainment reporter at Fox on the McCreary Report for about 6 years. I did a piece on Word Up magazine, which was the hip hop magazine. So they went into the archives, they pulled up that piece that I did, and they invited me to the show so I could talk about hip hop. And I told them same thing I'm telling you, that I thought, like many other people, that this was just going to be a fad and it wasn't going to be around long. During that period of time, of course, I did a lot of voiceovers and things, and advertising agencies would hire me when this hip hop sound started coming in to kind of give them that hip hop flavor until hip hop became more prominent. They got rid of me and started bringing in the actual rappers to do the commercials and stuff.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So I was wrong completely. Now, to another thing, someone gave me an opportunity to listen to Teddy Riley when he was trying to become an artist and stuff. Well, I listened. I passed on that because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I didn't want to judge anybody's music. So I ended up being just like perhaps you were listening to Frankie. Frankie was educating all of us
Yes. Yes.
about R&B music and sometimes pop music, and he'd bring in maybe a jazz piece or something. I was a student of music listening to Frankie. When I got out there on my own, I'm the type of person I never really wanted to judge anybody's art, so I just kind of let it come as it was, and I didn't try to say, "Oh, I think this is going to be the next thing," or "That's going to be the next thing." I just let it flow.
Well, if I could just say that I recall distinctly Frankie being among the last program directors in the New York area going with hip hop because he also had, I guess, a latent bias to it until it got to a point where
Yeah.
everybody was playing it. People were making it's about, at the end of the day, as you know, now as an entrepreneur, that it's about the dollar and
That's right.
bringing ears and eyeballs to wherever the attraction is. But, just to, piggyback on what you're saying, Keith, I think there was a certain level of decadence in hip hop, even back then, that we weren't accustomed to, basically listening to. And there was a standard that we had to rise to as broadcasters, particularly working for the Sutton operation. I know the late, great Chairman Emeritus Percy Sutton, the things that you would hear on the radio today, he did not want on his air.
That's right.
Even some of the political stuff that going into the news background of what we did back then, some of the things that used to be, that would be considered standard today, certainly was not standard back then because there was this perception that we had to keep a certain standard, elevate the conversation, if you will, as so that when we're judged, we're not judged as being people who basically, street people, if you will.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. Of course, there was a period where we were the best looking sound,
Yeah.
and we called ourselves the beautiful people. All of that was part of that imagery that WBLS and Frankie and Percy wanted to establish. But then when they started, and early rap was was pretty cool when you had Heavy D and the boys. They were pretty much talking about, hey, I'm an overweight lover, and it
Right.
was
Yeah.
kind of braggadocious type of rap.
Right. Right.
But then when they got into killing the police and all that stuff, that kind
No,
of
that was it.
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of changed everything.
Yeah, that gangster rap that
Right.
shifted the whole
Even
thing.
even some of the things that Chuck D and Public Enemy were doing, I mean, we found it appropriate because we were always protesting, regardless of what demographic or what era that we were in. A lot of us were against the war back in the '60s and '70s, and things were changing, and so there might have been some quality because I identified with Public Enemy and Chuck and all that.
Well,
But
some of that was educational. They were
Yeah.
educating us.
Right. So that I understood, but some of the decadent material, I think a lot of people turned their backs on, and it's amazing that it has a category today. I mean, I don't know if that's good or bad. I'd like to say it was a good thing that that we've come this far, because I know all this gets memorialized regardless of what I might say. I'm not. I'm like you. I'm not against it necessarily, but am I going to go home and put on the latest rap record that's rising the charts? I don't think so.
Right,
And I stay
right.
in my lane, and that's it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. So tell
Well,
us a little bit about your business. Now, are you training people? Are people doing shows? How does it work?
okay, so what we do is we have a platform by which, if you decide that you wanted to have a radio TV show, then we take care of the marketing for you. We
Mm.
we give you a dedicated engineer who is with you to guide you into commercial breaks, or let you know that people are on the phone waiting to talk with you. We give you an executive producer who kind of walks you through the whole process of training, and then we give you a we have tools, marketing tools that you can uh, send out press releases on your show, about your show and about your guests. And so we take care of all of that. And then it's a 13-week package that we sell to you. And if you decide that you want just the radio, that's one package. If you want radio and TV, that's another package. And if you want TV only, then that's another package. So that's how we do that. But that's just a part of what we do. The other part is we have a website where we have articles about our culture, and we cover various events, major events in Harlem. Like we cover the African American Day Parade, we cover Harlem Week, we cover many of the events that go on in Harlem. Now we're trying to connect Harlem with the Harlems of the world. So we're going to have correspondents in Chicago, Atlanta, Philly, Baltimore, LA, and places like that who will give us their uh, how can I say, they'll report on some of the cultural events that are going on in those particular cities, and that's how we connect Harlem with the Harlems of the world. And so that's one thing. Another thing is one of my channels is a health and wellness channel, and I'm the director of professional communications over at Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine here on 125th Street, across from the Apollo Theater. So I have these medical students there, and we're in the process now. I just hired Art McFarlane, who was a
Yeah.
legendary TV veteran from ABC.
Yeah, I
He's
remember
going,
that name. Yeah.
yeah, he's going to teach the medical students who would like to learn journalism, so that when they go back to their areas of practice, they can let the radio stations or TV stations know that, hey, if you have a medical crisis or medical issues, and you need someone to come on and discuss the issues, I'm available. So I'm putting together. I already put together the program, and we are going to train medical students who might be interested in journalism as well. So that's the training part. The other situation is we've got like I said, we've got like 11 channels, and one of the channels I'm going to put together a African American golf channel. I have I met the president of Tiger Woods Foundation. I met the president of the Callaway golf clubs, and then my buddy from school who was with me in fifth grade. He has been producing golf expos and forums around the country. So he and I are putting together this golf channel. That's one thing. Then another channel, I'm going to partner with the Schomburg and the United Negro College Fund, and National Urban League, and we're going to put together a Black History channel since these white people don't want us to learn our history anymore. We're going to put together a Black History channel. So these are the initiatives that we're working on here at Harlem America, and that's pretty much what we
Well,
do.
that is amazing. I mean, in fact, I know someone who would be excellent for your golf channel. In fact,
Really?
he's been on the air with us here, and he's in Delaware. He has a school where he's teaching young people how to play golf. Something
Oh,
I
great.
always thought very expensive, but I'll put you in contact with him. Perhaps your friend in Chicago knows my friend Dave. So
Excellent,
we'll
excellent,
see.
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, G. Keith, how can people get in contact with you? And what is your, your email and all that stuff?
Well, the email is g.keithalexander, Keith Alexander at HarlemAmerica.com. And we are available to anyone who might want to broaden their footprint and build fame, fortune, and followers around their brand.
Okay, that's wonderful.
And they can find us at HarlemAmerica.com. HarlemAmerica.com.
And what day does your show come on again?
I'm on Fridays at 1 p.m. What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander, and we're on from 1 to 2, and then uh, uh, once the live portion is over, the how can I say it? It can be replayed on our website HarlemAmerica.com, and what we do is all the special guests on our show, we give them what we call our brand support page. So on their brand support page sits the episode that we did, as well as they can give us any type of banners or videos or any type of ads or links to their merchandise that will go on their page as well as part of our
Awesome.
brand support.
Wow, that's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That
In
really.
your studios, Keith, are you actually in your studio now where you're doing the show? I know you do live pieces on the outside, at least the shows that I've seen. You're on the street with different entrepreneurs and talent and people like that. But where are you based, basically?
Well, due to the pandemic, because we actually went live during the pandemic, I really did not want to do a talk show because I'd never really done a talk show before. I mean, I'd been an entertainment reporter at Fox, and that would be like a 4 minute piece. And of course, being on music radio, you talk for about 2 or 3 seconds and play the music. Well,
Right.
I really didn't want to do a talk show because it's I just didn't feel like it was my
Specialty?
bailiwick. Yeah, So when the pandemic hit, the only place that I could think about setting up was here in my apartment because no one wanted to go to a studio to sit down in
Right.
front of anyone during the pandemic. So I've been doing for the last 3 years. I've been doing the shows out of my home, but we're building a studio now over at Turocom. We're going to build a nice little set there for that. And then I'm also thinking of around the corner here, uh, getting with the one of these not apartment, but office buildings where they're not, they've been empty for almost 3 years because for whatever reasons. And I'm thinking about trying to make a deal with them where I can get a space to really create a nice big studio.
Mm.
So, so
Sound,
that's where we are now.
Yeah, G. Keith, I would like you to come out here to Queens and see our studio and what my son Joe has built.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's was my vision in my head for a while, and now physically it's all here.
See, it all starts with an idea in the head,
Right.
Yes,
yes, it
yes,
does. Yes, it
and
does.
So do you have a separate location, or are you doing it out of you have a big room in your
we
home?
no, no, no. We now have a studio. We're down the block from the Long Island Railroad on Southern Boulevard. We have a studio, and it's a very nice size studio. And now we're going to begin. We also applied for grants, so we're going to be doing teaching.
Great.
Wayne is going to be doing the director of the teaching program. So we're going to be educating young people on broadcasting, and my son will be teaching the engineering part of doing podcasts and all the equipment that goes along with podcasts and so forth.
Beautiful.
And I'll jump in and
Yes.
I'll be doing the business aspect. So I've been running a business improvement district for the last 7 years. So I've been very involved with businesses and what dealing with the city agencies and so on and so forth, and getting free programs from Small Business Development Services and SBA type funding. So I try to connect the dots for the entrepreneurs and the businesses that are out there.
I only get $32 a week here, though.
I don't even
get car fare.
I don't even have lunch money.
That's right. I can't even get Section 9, let alone Section 8.
But it sounds like you guys got a great business plan and running a nice operation. And it's very important that our kids learn broadcasting and learn that there's another way for you to come and either do good or become a star, whichever one you want to, however you see it for yourself.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, our time is about up, and I would like people, please give us your information again and how they can contact you and so forth. I saw a picture of you with Anne Margaret. That's many, many years ago. But I did see it on your website.
I produced her show. She tried to get into the disco business during that time, and I produced her show.
Oh, okay. That's nice. That's very nice. Well, we have to come to Harlem, and you need to come out here to Queens and see what's happening.
And
where in Queens are you?
I'm on Sutton Boulevard
in Jamaica
Avenue.
It's like 125th Street.
Jamaica, Queens.
Jamaica, Queens.
Jamaica, Queens, yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
So how can people get a hold of you again?
Okay, so the website is HarlemAmerica.com, and you can go on, you can reach me at g.keithalexander@HarlemAmerica.com. And our mobile app, if you have an Apple phone or Android, you can go to either one of those stores. You can download our mobile app. What else? And of course, I told you that we're on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV, and also Android TV and Comcast Xfinity.
Oh, okay.
Excellent.
I like that. And Wayne, who has been my guest today, my guest co-host, how can people reach you?
Here. Don't call me at home, but it's always a pleasure to be here. And we have our own show called The Urban Algorithm. Maybe we could do some sort of partnership with that when I reboot it again, Keith. And,
what platform? What platform are you on?
Well, basically, we're on the same platform that Our World is. We're doing YouTube. I started and stopped, and one of the things I'm interested in, and this is something that I started out with Paul. I'm a cancer survivor. I've suffered from prostate cancer. I tell you, there's so many of us who are in a vacuum with respect to that. That's a whole show by itself, and we could talk about that, in some future project down the road. But I'm here. I'm with Our World.
Yeah.
Here.
Right. Our World.
Yeah, Our World. Glenn, how can people reach you?
Well, they can reach me at the soon-to-be-defunct Sutphin Boulevard bid. We're now combining 3 bids, so it's going to be we're going to be the downtown Jamaica bid, a business improvement district, and my number right now is 718-291-2110. So you can find out what's happening with the bid consolidation or anything that you want to find out about downtown Jamaica. Just give me a holler, and we'll set you up and get you in the right location to make some money.
That's a beautiful
Please.
thing. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Well, everybody, you all been listening to
So
our
wait a
world.
minute,
Go ahead.
wait, before we go. So Pauline, tell me more about our world and what you guys are doing.
Okay, well,
You didn't elaborate. You just
I
gave me a
didn't
little.
elaborate. Well, I'm going to elaborate since you asked.
Okay.
We started 8 years ago.
Mhm.
We started as a magazine. It was called Our World Magazine. And we put out about 10 different issues, right? But we found it very expensive to publish all these magazines, so we went digital. Okay. My son again designed the magazine and he did
Wow.
everything. Yeah,
Joe's very talented.
yeah,
Yes, he is.
he's
Yeah.
a what is it that you do? You're a graphic designer as well.
Graphic designer,
Right.
Really.
photographer, and videographer.
Yeah.
And editor.
An editor.
Right.
An editor. Yeah. So we started that way, and then I became involved with the Southern Boulevard bid, and I started a magazine and a newspaper on just about the Southern Boulevard, all the different businesses that's going on and the different activities that is going on in downtown Jamaica. And then one day I said to my son, because of you, I gave up broadcasting. I gave up radio. And
You sound like you have regrets.
She does.
And I said, well, you take pictures and you do, a lot of stuff that I'm interested in. Why don't we, join together? Maybe we can put together a local, radio station. And Wayne had said, yeah, I bring you the paperwork and we can put together a radio station. And then we realized that we were in downtown Jamaica with the airport and the two airports that we couldn't get a signal. It was going to be a problem. So my son said, well, let's do internet radio. And I said, well, I'm not big on the computer and stuff like that. So he said he would take care of it. He would build it from A to Z, and he did. But unfortunately, I'm still behind the times with the computer. So he looks at me every day and says, when are you going to learn this computer business? Because I built this radio station, and I thought, you was going to be on the air every day and fulfilling your dream. But I guess I let him down and stuff like that. But this is some of the stuff that we do out here in Queens. And the internet radio goes all around the country.
It's global,
internet.
yeah.
Yes, global. So my shows are on politics, entertainment, sports, and we also work with the Borough President's office here in Queens, and we produce podcasts for mental health. And I'm a social worker myself, so I will be doing more podcasts on mental health for the future.
In addition to that, we also do, we try to introduce new businesses, businesses that are up and coming, especially any black restaurants, but any type of entrepreneurs. And we take the time to let them speak to prospective new entrepreneurs. How did it get started? What were the pitfalls? What were the things that if they had known then would have made it smoother in terms of creating their business. And so we try to focus on entrepreneurship, business, and politics, and of course the goings on in the neighborhood, the critical things that are happening, and of course the day-to-day things that are happening out in the world. So we try to capture a community-based conversation, but not restricting it just to Queens.
Gotcha. Okay. And what do you do with the video now? So this is being recorded. What do you do with the video?
I'll let Joe, the producer, talk to you about that.
Yeah, this specific show, we're recording it. We didn't stream it, so sometimes we stream it on multiple platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and Roku. So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to edit and post, and then it'll be published. I will let you know, I'll send out a link, let you know when it's up. And the audio, I'm going to put on the radio station at the same time.
Excellent.
Yeah. But don't leave. When we finish the show, I have 2 questions to ask you. Hopefully you can help me.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Well, everybody.
Third question is
Go
money.
ahead.
Yeah, please.
Well, To my audience, thank you all for watching and listening to Our World, Our World Power. Catch you all next week. This is Lady Pauline, my co-host, Mr. Glenn Greenwich, and my guest co-host, Mr. Wayne Gilman.
Thank you.
Thank you, G. Keith. It was lovely having you on. And stay on the line, please.
My pleasure. It was an honor, and thank you for even thinking of me.
Of course.
Absolutely.
All the best.
All right.